Thank you for joining us today. My name is Allison Dewey, and today I'm going to be talking to you about basically modernizing legacy solutions, specifically those most often integrated with SharePoint on implementation. So that would be InfoPath Forms and SharePoint Designer workflows. As I said, my name is Allison Dewey. I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Marquee 360, and I am joined by one of my colleagues, Charlene. You want to say hello, Charlene?
Hello.
So Charlene's going to be helping me. Just keep an eye out for any raise of hands or questions or chats. Also, if you are intrigued by this conversation or to continue the discussion, I would certainly encourage you to connect with her, and we can take care of that for you. So we typically start our webinars with just a brief introduction to Marquee 360, and then I'm going to dive right into just some high-level drawbacks or challenges that we see organizations facing that are still using InfoPath Forms as part of their digital platform or SharePoint Designer workflows. The modern alternative to generating similar solutions is Microsoft's Power Platform. So I'll just explain what exactly that is. Then I'm going to pull up a Power app that was developed with the Power Platform, just so you can see what that looks like. I, in the past, have developed InfoPath Forms myself and SharePoint Designer workflows. Power App solutions are definitely more modern in appearance, so I'll give you an opportunity to see what that looks like. And then we'll talk about the high-level steps you should take when transitioning. Usually people are interested in this conversation when they are preparing to migrate their local SharePoint server implementation to the cloud. So we'll review some of the high-level steps you should take as you get ready to transition, along with inviting you to connect with Marquee 360 if you require additional support. So about Marquee 360, our organization was founded by a team of industry veterans. We maintain a Microsoft Gold Partner status where our specialization is work management and Microsoft 365 Cloud. The vision of the organization is to create solutions that are designed to enhance operations, boost efficiency, drive growth, and in order to do that, we partner closely with our customers to, go ahead and work through those innovations and automations and strive to build efficiencies into the team. As I mentioned, we focus on innovation. We like to help customers take advantage of the services that they are preparing to adopt or have already subscribed to, so the Microsoft 365 platform. And we do work closely with the Microsoft product team. That gives us a nice advantage when we then extend that platform by building these modern solutions using this Power Platform that I've mentioned. We want our customers to succeed, so we hope that they engage with us as a trusted advisor. We do take a consultative approach to the design of any solution. So, what platform should we use? Which type of app should we develop? And we then go on to support the customers we can provide that development service. We can assist with those implementations and then educate both the end user and administrators. When we engage with you, you have access to a dedicated support team, and we also provide hypercare support along with workshops, as your use of these tools requires. So, the drawbacks of InfoPath Forms. So InfoPath was a really popular tool for creating digital forms, and those forms are often served up via a SharePoint site. Being that the tool was deprecated in 2014, it should come as no surprise to you that these forms, they are now limited in functionality when it comes to being used on smartphones and tablets. Today's Microsoft 365 tools and technologies, they seamlessly integrate with a lot, not only the Microsoft 365 platform, but there are already pre-developed connectors to other tools that companies may use that are not part of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. To do that in InfoPath is quite a challenge. You may have also experienced that if you're using an InfoPath form, that as you start to use more current versions of browsers, that the forms may not behave as originally designed. I actually know of an organization that is trying to hold on to their Internet Explorer because their forms are just not working in Edge and even in Chrome. The functionality is not consistent. I guess the biggest thing here to be aware of is that support for InfoPath Form Services is going to be ending right around this time next year, so July 2026. So if you're not already, you should start to be thinking about what are those forms going to look like moving forward, because you're going to have to re-engineer them. With SharePoint Designer workflows, you can see the biggest drawback is basically its end of life. So if you have a SharePoint server implementation and you're getting that through what they now call a SharePoint server subscription, and you're still hanging on to any SharePoint Designer 2010 based workflows, in July 2026, they're not going to be supported anymore in those instances. If you created workflows with SharePoint Designer 2013, so 2013 workflows, you will find if you are preparing to migrate to the cloud and you are spinning up a tenant, those workflows are not going to be able to come with you. You cannot create those workflows in the newer tenants. If you secured a tenant before April of 2024 and you brought in some SharePoint Designer workflows, those are still functioning, but be advised that come April of 2026, they're turning off that capability, and you will be left with just raw XML files. So another reason it makes sense to start thinking about this, perhaps starting to re-engineer, is so that during testing, you can run in parallel for a bit and make sure that you're having the same expected results with the newer solution. As far as the SharePoint Designer app, as a whole, that support is also ending next July. So that's pretty much what is pushing a lot of people reconsidering now what to do with these designer workflows. Mainstream support did end in 2017, so I would say it's time. And what can we use to re-engineer that? It is solutions, or they are solutions built with the Microsoft Power Platform. So what can we do with the Power Platform? We can automate processes using Power Automate. So that's going to be your alternative to SharePoint Designer workflows. You can create custom applications, right? Digital forms. We create those using Power Apps. So that's going to be your alternative to InfoPath Forms. Even though I haven't really talked about it, so another part of the Power Platform suite is Power BI. So often we find, desktop power users created some really great solutions. And, through Microsoft Access, a lot of those power users might have created reports to query, let's say, SQL Server databases, or they might have crafted some really robust Excel workbooks, for data analysis and visualization needs. In order to get those in a place that is meant to be an enterprise solution. Also to provide the ability for if people are looking at these reports, they can drill down into the data. You would consider redeveloping those reports using Power BI. And again, that is part of the Power Platform. The last item that I have listed here, so originally we had Power Virtual Agents, and that was part of the Power Platform. But with these agents becoming so powerful, that's kind of been separated, and we now have Copilot Studio. While it's not really directly part of the Power Platform, the agents, those bots, those chat mechanisms that we can develop using Copilot Studio, they can interact with a Power Automate workflow, or they can get data from a Power App. So that's why I'm mentioning it here, just to kind of round out what your options are. So if you have InfoPath Form Solutions, if you are using workflows, those may be to help you follow processes that have strict governance or compliance needs. Those solutions may be tracking and monitoring progress or performance on a regular basis. You may be using those InfoPath forms to collect data from various sources. Other ways that people use these solutions for transferring data between different systems, right? Automating repetitive tasks, trying to get away from having to, look through unstructured emails and complex spreadsheets and legacy systems. I mentioned Microsoft Access to kind of bring it into a more modern format. So if you're using InfoPath and SharePoint Designer workflows to do any of this, you can transition that to a Power Platform solution. The benefits, so enhanced functionality, right? It's been a while. These other tools, their support ended in 2017 and earlier. So certainly these new solutions have modern features and capabilities and can streamline things even more effectively and efficiently. Obviously, these newer solutions are more up to date when it comes to security. So these will better protect your data from modern threats. The better integration. So I mentioned Power Platform certainly integrates with like the click of a button to most of your other Microsoft 365 services and apps and features. But then also there is a very large inventory of pre-built connectors so that you could build a Power App that talks to Jira. You could build a Power App that gets some data from SAP. So it is certainly easier to build a solution that's kind of tapping into whatever other solutions you're using. Future-proofing. So technologies, they're always changing. Probably the same word was used when InfoPath came about. The issue is really more about how far behind you have become. It becomes more challenging to evolve with the times when you're far behind. So I think it's a true statement. If for any reason you have a SharePoint 2010 server installation and you're ready to move to the cloud, you might have to upgrade that first to, I think, 2016 before you can even consider it. So that's why it is important to try and keep close, if not right with modern solutions, because it just becomes a more complex initiative the further behind you get. So these legacy tools compared to the Power Platform, you'll hear Microsoft or read Microsoft describe these as low-code app development with an intuitive development UI. I will say, having been an InfoPath Forms developer and SharePoint workflow developer myself, that too I could argue, well, that was pretty low code. As long as you were trying to keep things somewhat basic. As the more you wanted to get out of those products, you found yourself in a text-based code editor. I can tell you that the Power Platform is nothing like that. But even though it is low code, chances are you would still need maybe some assistance from developers that kind of have that mindset, or that can explain some of the terms and technologies, or the terms that you might see when you're navigating that interface. I already mentioned that seamless integration with Microsoft 365 tools and external data. Very easy to make those connections from the Power Platform, not so much from those legacy tools. Responsive user interface and mobile accessibility. So when I talk about responsiveness, if you were looking at an InfoPath form on a laptop versus a mobile phone, if you even could, you would probably get a lot of scroll bars, and it would be hard to see the entire form. With a Power App solution, or if SharePoint Online, what you're going to see is the screen will automatically, or the app will automatically detect the resolution and the pixels of your screen and shift the presentation so that you're able to navigate it with greater ease. Also in the Power Platform, you've got optional AI-driven features, right? The world is all about like seeing if we can't harness the power of AI to accelerate the way that we're working. We can't tap into those from these legacy tools, but we certainly can from within a Power Platform developed application. I already highlighted that you're going to get enhanced security and compliance when you're using these modern tools. The big one is though, hey, could I keep my SharePoint on premises installation and have a Power App solution? You can. Just be advised though that the Power Platform is a cloud-based service. And so in order to talk to your local installation, you're going to have to configure some sort of gateway or cloud connectivity. If your organization has constraints when it comes to cloud and you can't go there, I can't speak to it, but I would suggest that you have your IT staff take a look at what's called the SharePoint Workflow Manager. Any questions about what I've kind of run through before I show you what does a Power App look like? Okay. So let me pull one up here. So here at Marquee 360, we do a lot of Power App development of workflows and automations and dashboards. So what you're looking at here is actually a Power App. You may hear the term Canvas app versus model-driven app. This happens to be this blue area is a Canvas app, and what that means is we pretty much started with a blank slate. We had a very simple need to capture ideas to be evaluated to determine if they should become a project. This is a solution that we do offer. And so all we needed was a couple of simple lists behind the scenes. So this app actually sits on top of SharePoint lists. And what's nice about that is it limits the additional investment that's required. You don't need any additional licensing to have this Power App being used by the Microsoft 365 subscribers in your organization, because they have access to the SharePoint list. So I just wanted to show with Power Apps, we have things that allow us to expand and collapse rows. You can see that we can use visual indicators. In this case, we have workflows that are part of the solution, and this indicator is showing you where in the process it is, so a nice visual for the end users. You'll see we can use little icons that are basically buttons or actions. And you can see we can drop in other elements. So in this case, we've added a search mechanism that will then search the data that is behind this app. I'll show you what a form looks like. So as you can see, it is possible to have a tabbed interface. You'll notice we have drop downs. We have indicated what fields are required using that familiar asterisk. We have multi-line text boxes. We have date controls. We can also do calculations on the fly. So for example, in this case, we want to score our idea. Like how would this idea really benefit the company in these areas? And depending on the answers, we'll get a priority score. Now, this is just simple math, but behind the scenes, we could certainly have this be a much more sophisticated calculation, but you can see that value is changing as I'm, picking choices. So that's an app. As I mentioned, here, I'll just save this as a draft, but I don't have a project name. I'll go to home. So the other flavor of apps that you can create is the model-driven app. So this whole thing, you see over here on the side, I have plans, I have projects, I have portfolios, I have research, I have a lot of data that's related. And so when we have something where there's a lot of structured data, a lot of relationships between the data, in that case, there's probably something much more thoughtful behind the scenes, like, a data model, a database. We may want to tap into Microsoft's Dataverse. And so when that's the case, we can develop a model-driven app. Not too, you'll see things like the presentation looks a little bit more, I guess I'll say refined, right? So here is a listing. You'll see we have indicators that we can use. I'll open this. Before we had that tabbed presentation, so same thing, I can do a tabbed presentation. You'll see that right now, this is calling other apps within the context of my apps. That's that integration with Microsoft 365 services. So up here, this is a different way that we're showing something progressing through a workflow. You see that we have some things that are locked because these are calculations. So very, very similar capabilities between the two. And I mentioned that, here at Marquee, our consultative approach. So depending on what your solution is, what your budget is, we would help you select, the right approach. Should we do this as a Canvas app? Should we do this as a model-driven app? So how to transition, again, this is, like I said, most organizations are listening to this if what's driving it is they're about to migrate their SharePoint solution to the cloud, to SharePoint Online. So you're certainly going to want to go through a phase of planning and assessment. You're going to want to identify all of your InfoPath forms and SharePoint design workflows, prioritize which ones need to be re-engineered or replaced, which ones should be addressed first. As far as the migration itself, so a lot of your SharePoint data, it's very easy to either lift and shift, which we don't necessarily always recommend, or we can do a more sophisticated mapping, right? Create the target solution and then map the data and move it. There are tools that help with that. Microsoft has a free SharePoint migration tool, which is great when you're moving from a local installation to the cloud. That tool will not only help with the moving of lists and data, it won't move workflows, but it will give you a running start. It will look at the actions in those workflows and carry some of those over to Power Automate so that you can then round out whatever functionality did not come across. With your InfoPath forms, that is definitely going to be more of a re-engineering process. If for any reason you're moving from one Microsoft 365 tenant to another, that Microsoft SharePoint migration tool is not going to work for you, but there are other third-party solutions. The one that I typically recommend is something called ShareGate. So you'll move, you'll re-engineer. You're going to want to make sure that you then test and validate the functionality of what's been created, making sure they function as expected in the new environment. So probably a good idea to maybe work in parallel for a little bit, just to make sure this new version of your solutions is going to meet the needs. And you're then also going to have to go be sure to provide training to help the organization adopt this new form or understand, in addition to getting an email, hey, I'm getting a Teams notification, because that's something we can now do when we use Power Automate. So, your end users, they don't necessarily need to understand, Power Apps or Power Automate or the Power Platform. They'll just need to understand the new solution you've created. Administrators, it's probably good for them to just have an understanding of what's in place and how to maintain it moving forward. And if not, certainly I would encourage you to partner with Marquee 360 if this is a path you're about to go down, because we have both consulting and support services. So we can build new Power Platform solutions. We can also help with the re-engineering of your InfoPath forms and your SharePoint Designer workflows within the context of the Power Platform. So I appreciate you joining us. We did have an hour set aside in the event there were questions, but you can see that Charlene has dropped a survey into the chat, so we would love to hear from you. And if there is any interest in continuing the conversation, please reach out to us, or you're welcome to ask us questions now because we have a few minutes. But otherwise, thank you very much for your attention.